Welcome to another edition of the 49er Goldcast.
San Francisco, are you ready? Welcome to another edition of the 49er Goldcast. This is the Bay Area fan perspective. I'm your host, Rudy Solis III, and with me is my brother, my co-host,
Raymond Solis I, baby.
And our esteemed co-host,
Old Man Davis.
Boom! Gentlemen, week 5 is done and in the books. A tough loss, another tough loss. This one cut in some ways, but there also was at least a glimmer of hope. The 49ers showed a lot more offensive prowess in what was a pretty tough loss this past Sunday at MetLife Stadium. 49ers lose 30-27. Eli Manning threw a touchdown pass to Larry Donald with 21 seconds left on the clock. This came after Eli narrowly escaped an interception by Tremaine Brock that was ruled an incomplete pass after review. Cap kept it pretty good. He was 23 for 35 with 262 yards on the day, 2 touchdown passes, 0 interceptions. His QBR was 87.5 for him of the season thus far. Raymond, let's start with your overall thoughts on the games. There's some things I definitely want to ask you guys, but Raymond, let's begin with you.
Overall, this was a competitive loss, so it was a lot easier to swallow, and I think I speak for all fans when you can say that this is the kind of loss that we can deal with. Granted, it's not the ultimate result that we will settle with. However, in comparison to the previous 2 weeks, it's certainly something that we will take gladly over the previous 2 weeks. I mean, we are still on a 4-game losing streak, which is not fun. But there was a lot of takeaways that I saw that they made improvements. You know, they came into the game, they played hard, they played tough. And you could see that despite the slow, sluggish start in the early half, and that was mainly due to the Giants, who had really made us one-dimensional, and it took us a while to finally get out of that funk. I really liked the early second quarter lateral to Bruce Ellington. They tried it again later, but Torrey Smith missed his block. He ended up blocking the same guy that Bolden was blocking. They were supposed to block 2 different receivers on that play. Later on 3rd and 2 in the third quarter, there was that over-the-shoulder lob to Bolden in stride for 37 yards. That was terrific. Cap was excellent in the second half. He followed that up by another over-the-shoulder pass to Bolden in the fourth that completed for 26 yards. That was terrific. The run was stuffed most of the night, but I mean, Hyde finally broke out in the fourth. I mean, he had that 19-yard gash. You know, the issue I had was while the defense didn't do them any favors, the offense really should have managed the clock better than they did in that last drive. It was big pass after big pass, and 1 minute and 45 seconds for Eli Manning is way too much time based on the results. Yes, Cap had 5 passes of 17 or more yards in the second half. That was excellent. Hyde was held to 12 yards in the first half, but he finished with 93, so that gives you an idea of how much more efficient he was in the second half. We were 3 for 4 on red zone efficiency. Excellent number. That's the best we've seen all year, actually. So there's a lot of takeaways and things that we can build on. The question is, will that same team show up next week? Without delving too much into next week, because we always do that for the end of the show, I think there's hope, and I will elaborate later on.
Old Man Davis, your thoughts?
I had to watch this game twice and listen to what I said on the last Goldcast. The 49ers could have, should have, and would have beat the New York Giants at MetLife. And the stats and numbers alone, this was a visiting team that had that chance. The Giants didn't play the best game, but they were given so many opportunities to blow out the 49ers. And compared to that Green Bay game, the offense did their job. The defense couldn't hold on or put on any solid pass rush on the Super Bowl quarterback Eli Manning. And it was very positive.
No sacks.
Just very positive to see the 49ers keep this a close game, and collectively both the offense and defense to thank for that. And we all knew, mostly me, that if you didn't stop Eli from making those plays, or you didn't match or exceed the same amount of points the Giants put up, there wasn't going to be a chance. But to rally from behind and emphasize what you boys were saying, down by 3 points, scoring that final TD to take the lead means a lot. And number 7 didn't win his team the game, but he walked away playing better and closer to playing a full game like a starting quarterback he's paid to do. And the team was energized. The offense was opening up in that second half in a real great way we haven't seen at all over the last 4 or 5 weeks. It's just one of those games that as a player and a coach you want so bad, but you fly back to the West Coast not getting that W.
Okay, so that's the big question I have. And Raymond, I want to ask you first. Is this an emotional victory victory for the 49ers. Now, we don't call it an emotional win because a win's a win, a W's a W, and an L's an L. But is this an emotional victory for the 49ers? Is this something they can hang their hat on and go, if we can build from this and move forward, we might have something here? I'm not saying, take the division.
In terms of the offense, I think absolutely. The defense, no. They play a lot better at home, but when these guys go on the road, it's a completely different story for some reason. So I'm not sure what the issue is. The Niners in the past were known for being a team that packs their defense. It is not the case this year, nor was that really the trend last year either. So for some reason, this team has been struggling on the road defensively. And other than week 2 and week 3, and yeah, you can say week 4 as well, but they were struggling offensively too. So it's an emotional momentum builder for next week. That's probably how I would describe it. I wouldn't necessarily call it a victory, but I think it's definitely something that you can build on. And all the players echoed the same sentiment as well, because they know that Bolden said that Cap played his butt off. Torrey Smith said that he was proud of Cap this game. So the thing for Kaepernick going forward is got to get to that point where it's not just hit and miss in this new Kaepernick that is allowed to run, but also can make those good plays and make those layups. He has to reach the next level, which is, hey, I'm at this new psychological confidence where I can play like this every game. Because you see Rodgers plays like that every game. Drew Brees plays like that every game, despite his team is in a rebuilding phase. Tom Brady's like that. Ben Roethlisberger's like that when he's healthy. So that's the next step for Cap, is to reach that next level that says, hey, I can do this every game. So that's what we got to see going forward. And I think he's got a good shot, again, without trying to jump into the final segment here in our preview for the Ravens game. But I think he's got a good shot this coming Sunday.
Old Man Davis, how do you look at this? Obviously, with your unique perspective from ownership, would you consider this an emotional victory for the 49ers or an emotional momentum builder, like Raymond just said?
I leave and flush my emotions in the toilet in the bathroom. And I did that before I jumped onto this Goldcast.
That's TMI?
Yeah.
TMI, but okay.
I want to get back to what the Giants excelled at, because number 7 did win a victory for the locker room.
It's completely ducking the question.
He won a victory for the locker room, right? He won something for himself to look back and reflect on what he can do in a game like a week 6. The personnel wasn't matched well play for play against the Giants. And I want to talk about the defense, because the defense is what's going to win the games here on. All right, we already see that number 7 had an ability in the second half to score points and put up the 24 points that could have won the game. Yet Eli Manning, the Super Bowl champion that he is, was able to bring back the Giants, pass that winning touchdown to Larry Donald, and win the game for New York. It was the defense on.
Had Bowman anticipated.
Had Bowman not gotten an injury, he would have been the same Bowman.
Had Bowman
not had that same injury.
Had Bowman just
4 minutes, the Giants had the ball longer than the 49ers, and the score within a touchdown. Eli Manning finished the game with over 400 yards. Answer that, defense. All you have to do if you're the opponent of the 49ers is play up to 70% of your offense by passing, and you will.
Bowman didn't even have a good game. He actually looked a little slow, and he got beat on several plays and didn't even finish a couple tackles either. I mean, he finished the game, the entire defense in tackles, but did not look like himself.
And let's call a spade a spade. If Bowman led the team in tackles, and Bowman, as you say, Ray, is not the same or was just a step slower,
he looked a little
as
off.
Fans are used to seeing Navarro playing, then that, my friends, is a very sad state of affairs in 49er land, because you are not going to win any games if that's how they played. I mean, they lost Odell Beckham. They lost Reuben Randall. Eli Manning had no weapons to throw to.
That is frustrating, considering that he was down to his 2 best weapons and still managed to carve up that secondary. They look really confused with their assignments, like they don't quite get Mangini's scheme. I think if they got it, it would be a different story, but they look confused out there. I'm not sure what it is.
They look like a group of professional football players that know how to play defense, yet they're not fully committed, fully knowledgeable in playing to that defense that Mangini is setting up in the schemes.
I don't think there's a question of their commitment so much as just their understanding.
Yeah, you know what? You know what it looks like to me? This is what it looks like. You have a lot of new things being thrown together at once. You have a lot of new players. You have a lot of young players. You have a brand new coaching scheme, a brand new coaching philosophy. And it just seems like they're not quite able to put everything together at the same time. Some weeks it's the coaching's really off. Then some weeks it's the players' ability to execute their assignments. It looks like to me that we have a team that's just struggling to gel all the way, getting all the pieces together. And sometimes certain pieces are working and sometimes other pieces are not. Definitely the secondary needs work. I mean, they're getting cut up every single week. But in general, it just looks like to me a young team with a new coaching staff that's trying to find its footing. Would you guys agree with that?
I believe so.
I would agree. I would also add that new coaching staff, whether you're Jeep Christ or Eric Mangini.
He's not Jesus.
Cheap Christ. Yeah, we would have a much better option.
And this is definitely a season in progress. And I just want to add about number 7.
That's fair.
He should feel really good knowing his starting job is farther away from jeopardy and career catastrophe after this game. I mean, he saw himself making plays for his team, making passes, not always pretty, but doing a better job in week 5 to stay in place, throw the ball in place for a wide receiver to catch.
To me, I have to go back out and play football. It's a game at the end of the day. It's not life or death. I go out, I go to play, I play to win, do everything I can to try to help this team win.
And thus, he's named in Old Man Davis's book, Come Back Colin. Just come back.
Come back. Just come back. Come back home. We're waving the light at the Golden Gate Bridge. Come back home, son. We're right here.
He fought to the end for sure. He was fighting with just as much prowess as Eli Manning.
I just want to.
And they were both defenses were tired.
Are you done, Rudy?
I haven't said a word, old man Davis.
You've been talking this whole time.
You keep butting in.
Look, I saw the
don't even know what you're
49ers
saying.
defense, for the most part, play decent against Eli Manning. Decent. But it's Eli that can just turn it up at that very end of the game. And that's what makes champions.
The main thing that I thought was the most positive takeaway from all of this, I think it's probably the same positive takeaway most people have, which was Colin Kaepernick got out of his own head and played some football. Started throwing those bullets like we're used to seeing. Maybe not so focused on quote unquote touch and more focused on just firing those suckers in.
Well, there's a time for touch, and he knew when he had to touch, he knew when he had to arc, and he knew when he had to gun it.
Absolutely, you're right.
That's why I said earlier, this wasn't a pretty game for him, but it was enough for him to realize if you just throw the ball, give the receivers an opportunity. All right, I'm going to end it with this. There was a locker room victory where players had a small stream of inspiration, that bit of hope knowing that they're not the worst of the worst, just part of the worst. And now they have to prepare and play what looked like a playoff contender in preseason, what's called the Baltimore Ravens, at home, Levi Stadium. Moving on.
We are actually about to get into some pretty good discussion about Jim Tomsula. But first, a word from our sponsor. Hey, old man Davis.
Hey, Rudy Solis III.
What are you doing here?
Trying to look for a decent podcast to listen to.
Are you looking for a 49ers podcast to listen to?
Yeah, is there one on the internet?
Actually, I'm glad you asked, because there's not just a good 49ers podcast out there. There's the best 49ers podcast out there. And that is the 49ers Goldcast. The Goldcast. Are you tired of your old traditional 49ers podcast? We are too. And when we need a fresh new perspective on the 49ers, we turn to the 49ers Goldcast. They are the only voice that truly represents the Bay Area fan perspective. Hosted by Rudy Solis III, his brother Raymond Solis I, and that silly old curmudgeon, Old Man Davis. The 49ers Goldcast is considered by most to be the greatest fan podcast in the history of fan podcasts. You can download the latest episode of the 49er Goldcast on YouTube, iTunes, and Stitcher. Simply type in the 49ers Goldcast as one word. And be sure to like us on Facebook at facebook.com/49ers Goldcast. All right, gentlemen, back to the show. So Adam Lefkoe and Chris Sims of Bleacher Report discussed this week if Jim Tomsula should be on the hot seat. He was one of 3 coaches featured in a very small, quick video about coaches that had pretty rough starts to the season and whether or not they were in danger of losing their jobs. So now I turn the question to you, gentlemen. Is Jim Tomsula in danger of being fired mid-year, after this year? Old Man Davis, we're going to start with you.
Look, I like Jim. I like Tomsula. I like everything about those two names together. Not only is he the head coach of the San Francisco 49ers, who are playing dismal and pathetic this season?
Hats off to Eli Manning and the New York Giants. We didn't make enough plays.
But he's doing an outstanding job given the tools he has. It's his first job as a head coach. And although he probably wasn't York's and Balky's first choice, he is their little pet project that they plan to commit to unless there is a better candidate out there in the offseason. Now, with that being said, do I think he's deserving to be on the hot seat? No, because again, this is the project of upper level management. They will make their bed knowing that this is their go-to coach.
Grab that, hold it tight, and keep going through it.
And Jim is going to play his part by doing the best he can, which is helping his team win. He didn't have the ability to decide and choose who his coaching staff was. It was just given to him. So with all that being said, the locker room, the players, the personnel, they all support him. It just needs to be given time to breathe and nurtured so that they can see whether or not they can win under him.
I made of the right stuff.
And that's it. Do I think he needs to be in the hot seat? No, that's the answer to your question. I'm done.
Raymond, do you believe Jim Tomsula should be on the hot seat right now?
Absolutely not. And we've talked about this before. Jim Tomsula has undertaken a very difficult coaching position, and any coach would be in the same situation, regardless of how good or not good or inexperienced he would be. You're coming into a brand new system where you've had unforeseen departures in terms of free agency, retirements, and the like. So coming in here and trying to bring in a new scheme, bring in a new philosophy on virtually a new group with new offensive linemen too as well, it's a daunting task, to be quite frank about it. Look, if they lose every game like Pittsburgh and the Arizona games, then you could probably make a case for that. However, they won week 1. They competed for half the time against the Green Bay game, and they had a very competitive loss here to the New York Giants. There's still a lot of games left to be played, so there's still a chance to turn things around. But even if they were to lose every game here, it depends on the manner in which they lost, which would really kind of determine whether he would get on the hot seat or not. I personally don't see it happening either way, and that's basically because he's just in a really rough situation. When you're rebuilding a team, it's always going to be tough, and it doesn't matter whether you're Bill Parcells, Bill Belichick, or Jim Harbaugh.
Yeah, I mean, I think people forget that Jim Harbaugh came into a scenario where the team was pretty much in place, and it was clearly a lack of coaching, direction, and leadership that was really failing them. All the keys were there. All the offensive weapons were there. All the defensive weapons were there. In fact, they were predicted several times right before Jim Harbaugh came in to be a competitor in the NFC West or even take the division. So, I mean, people were actually really surprised at how poorly the team was playing given how many weapons they had on both sides of the ball. I think people forget that. And as far as Jim Tomsula, I agree. I don't think he should be on the hot seat yet. Again, now that we have 5 weeks behind us and looking at the body of work or lack thereof that has been put together, it really looks like a lot of just new team woes. Obviously, Kaepernick does not fall under that, but in general, it looks like there's just a lot of young players, new coaching staff, everyone trying to get on the same page and just trying to figure it out and not quite gelling yet. I'm not taking away what has happened, and I'm not sugarcoating it or trying to put this polish on it. That's not. It's been a terrible season, no question.
This ends now. I want you to play some second half football like this is your last game. Now let's go out there and win some ball games. And that's it. And we're moving on.
So this next topic I gleefully titled, "Who's Got It As Bad As Us?" Can we talk about the Seattle Seahawks for just 1 minute? You guys remember them? Our arch rivals. Those guys we were facing in that NFC Championship.
Quarterback who said he had these meditation bubble drinks.
He had bubble drinks. He had literally Jeep Christ's brother, Jesus Christ, on his side. He literally believed that God was willing him to victory through a puddle of bubble water tears. This team, if it wasn't for the no call last Monday, the Seahawks would be 1-4. We both would be fighting for 4th place. This team is in almost as much trouble as us. They do not look very good out there. One no call away, they should be 1-4 right now. They should have lost at home against the Detroit Lions.
0-5.
0-5.
They're the worst team in the league.
Yep. I mean, those guys are a mess. Well, you know what I said? I've said this for several years in a row, and I'm going to say it again. The biggest weapon that the Seahawks have had for the last 3 years was that Russell Wilson $700,000 contract. That was their secret weapon. The fact they were paying that guy literally pennies. They're throwing pennies out of a bucket to him. Here you go. It's like Sunday at church. They got the little bowl and they're just throwing a buck in there for him. Boom, here you go, buddy. That was their secret weapon because they were able to amass this fantastic team around him for years on that rookie contract. And now that money's come in, that Super Bowl chip, and that other Super Bowl appearance, everyone wants to get paid. They can't afford everybody. Coaches getting pulled left and right. And oh, how the mighty have fallen.
I know now why you cry, but it's something I can never do.
Raymond, your thoughts?
Just piggybacking off of that, to further emphasize how bad things are in Seattle. Not only do they have a losing record and they are third in the NFC West, but Russell Wilson has more sacks than not only Colin Kaepernick, but the previous league leader in Alex Smith. And now, which means, yes, he does lead the NFL with 22 total sacks for 124 yards loss.
Wow, really?
Yes, sir.
Wow. Old Man Davis, your thoughts?
My thoughts, and I'm trying to jump out of the question that you're asking me, Rudy, is week 6, they play against the Carolina Panthers. If they come away with the win, because that game is just as much of a challenge for Seattle as this Ravens game coming up against the 49ers. If both can walk away with either a loss or a win, then by week 7, they're going to play each other and see who finally takes that last place position in the NFC West. You boys following me?
Yep, they might be fighting for the bottom of the barrel. With just 2 years ago, these two teams were fighting for the Super Bowl.
That money has gone to his head. That liquid sword has gone to his head.
That liquid sword has gone to his head. Honestly, there's deeper issues with that team. It's not just losing player personnel and coaches. There's gelling issues. The team isn't necessarily getting along. This is a team that was fist fighting with Percy Harvin the day of the Super Bowl, the first one. And that kind of inter-team turmoil has never fully gone away. Marshawn Lynch doesn't fully trust the coaching staff. There's issues up and down. And bear in mind, Pete Carroll, who's had some questionable play calling from the Super Bowl to now, bear in mind, this is a coach that was one playoff victory away from getting fired. 2010 Seahawks when they went 7-9 and they managed to beat the Saints in the opening round of the playoffs. Had they not won that game, he most likely would have been fired that year. And the only reason his formula even worked as well as it did is because he completely copied Jim Harbaugh's. Boom. There I said it. Drop the mic. Get out of my face.
Yeah, they only went to the playoffs because by default they were first in the NFC West with the losing record. That's how bad the division was then. Moving on.
I knew we hired the best talent here on the Goldcast.
Speaking of the best talent, are you looking for the best podcast? So are we. That's why we're here at the 49er Goldcast. You can find the 49er Goldcast on Stitcher, iTunes, YouTube, and you can like us on our fan page at facebook.com/49ers Goldcast. Be sure to like us. All right, gentlemen, final segment of the evening. It's all about that money.
That cream.
That green.
That doubloons.
That broccoli.
That celery.
That wager.
That lettuce.
Relish.
Kale.
Spinach.
Greenbacks.
Green beans.
Green leaves.
Dead presidents.
Yellow onions.
Green LED lights.
Skrills.
Ching ching.
Scratch.
Coin.
Money.
A 1-up mushroom.
Chips.
Gold coins on Mario Brothers.
I have that.
Moolah.
Dollar bill, y'all. Tell us about next week's game.
It is a home game, thankfully. Sunday, October 18th at 1:25 Pacific daytime. The Baltimore Ravens will be coming to Levi Stadium to face off with our San Francisco 49ers. TV will be on CBS KPIX5. We can also listen to it on the radio at 107.7 The Bone.
Yeah. Baltimore Ravens are 2.5-point favorites. It's a slim margin. Vegas doesn't really trust either of these teams. Gentlemen, the question of the evening is, do you take that bet? Thankfully, Old Man Davis, you were wrong. Unfortunately, Brother Ray, you were wrong too. I was hoping you were going to be right before Old Man Davis would be wrong. Unfortunately, that did not happen. Both of you were wrong. The bet was off. 2.5-point margin, very slim. Raymond, do you take that bet? Ravens, 2.5-point favorites.
I would not. take that bet at all, because I think that the Niners actually have a chance of bouncing back in the win column this week, because the Ravens are completely depleted on the defensive side. And it'd be one thing to say, yes, the 49ers defense struggles. However, at home, they have played exceptionally well, as we saw against the Packers, at least through the first 3 quarters, and the Vikings was dominated throughout all 4 quarters. So you have a depleted defense coming all the way to the West Coast to play a team that typically plays pretty good football at home. And I think you take that, because if you look at Elvis Dumervil left the game this last week with a groin injury, and they already lost Terrell Suggs for the season in week 1. Their rookie 4th-round pick, Zach Darius Smith, who replaced Dumervil on a defense that they was already struggling. The Ravens are only down to 2 healthy cornerbacks, Jimmy Smith and Kyle Arrington, because LaDarius Webb is out with a thigh, and Will Davis' knee went down in the first half. And the team had to use the safety Terrence Brooks at nickelback. And they're actually trying to sign Sharice Wright, the cornerback we just released, because they are so depleted, which means that Colin Kaepernick is in a very good position to have a strong passing game. And this team does not have a pass rush right now either, with Terrell Suggs being gone, who's their best pass rusher. So, no, I don't see that at all. And Will Davis actually is lost for the season. That knee injury turned out to be an ACL tear. So, yeah, he's gone bye-bye. So that means Kaepernick has all kinds of exposure that he can take advantage of. And the defense needs to take advantage of, they need to get some penetration on that offensive line that's typically plays pretty good this season. They've only allowed half the amount of sacks that Kaepernick has sustained this year, so they're a lot better. Their running game, their running back actually went down this past week with an ankle injury. Don't know if he'll be ready for Sunday. He might be questionable, probable. Doesn't matter. He's probably going to be taking it easy throughout the week leading up to game time, so it might be a game time decision for him. I take the Niners in the win column by 7 points.
Ooh, boom.
I'm going to piggyback off of what Ray had said and add a little more. Levi Stadium, a tight 49ers game loss against the Giants, and the Browns knocking out the Ravens in week 5. It's going to be by far the most challenging bet to make this season for me. But Old Man Davis is going with the home team. Since 2011, although the Ravens have owned the 49ers, this defense is not the same defense. And with so many questionable injuries plaguing John Harbaugh's team, I don't see them having enough to win by the end of 4 quarters. I like Justin Forsett. I trust Joey Flacco, but I don't see them getting by knowing that they lost to the Browns, which has the worst defense in the league. Statistics given. Coincidentally, the 49ers being just the next team above the Browns. I'm just going to have to go with the 49ers, red and gold on this one, baby. I don't take that bet. 49ers win this game, and they win it by more than 2 points.
Boom, boom, boom. There we go, gentlemen. Raymond, where can they find you?
You can follow me on Twitter at Ray Solis. You can also follow me on Instagram at Ray Solis1. You can also follow us at 49ers Goldcast, and like us on Facebook, facebook.com/49ers Goldcast, as well as on Stitcher. Subscribe to us on YouTube, subscribe to us on iTunes, and you'll be plugged in and always ready to receive the latest and greatest when we go live every week, typically on Wednesdays.
Yes, where you can find us every Wednesday. You can find me at Rudy Solis 3rd, Rudy Solis 3RD. You can find me on Instagram and Twitter. Follow me. I will follow you back. The 49 Goldcast, as Raymond said, is released every Wednesday. Old Man Davis, where can they find you?
You can find me on the date of the 25th of October in San Diego, as well as on CBS. Check your local listings. I'll be in a TV monitor screen near you.
Bam! So concludes another edition of the 49er Goldcast. We are the Bay Area Fan Perspective. I'm your host, Rudy Solis III, and with me is my brother, my co-host,
Raymond Solis first, baby.
And our esteemed co-host,
Old Man Davis.
Bam! We'll see you next week. Same Goldcast time, same Goldcast channel. Give it to me, baby. Give it to me, baby. Give it to me, baby. Give it to me, baby.
Houston, we have a problem. Right.